Hello everyone. I'm Dr. Bilha Paryente from Israel, and I'm so happy to meet you all and to present my research regarding maternal post-traumatic growth. I will share now my presentation, and I will start to present this very unique and interesting research. So, here we are. I will present today my research about post-traumatic growth among mothers who experienced the October 7th attack with their children, and I am from the Achva Academic College in Israel. So, a little background. When we are talking about investigating extreme trauma, in this context, it is about the intersection of fear and caregiving, because mothers have also their personal fear. On the other hand, they have also their maternal responsibility. They need to activate emotional regulation while experiencing potentially traumatic events, and they have to create meaning making under that kind of threat. So the context of this research was the October 7th in the area of the Gaza envelope, which is an area very near to the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip. And there are many communities who used to live there peacefully. They suffered from ongoing missile attacks, but in the 7th of October, there was a very extreme event with above 1,000 of citizens who were unfortunately murdered, and a part of them also raped. So those mothers lived in a very special community, which is called the kibbutzim, which is a community which is more intimate and used to share their financial resources. Nowadays, they are financially separated, but are very intimate communities. So all of the participants of this research were mothers from the Gaza envelope, kibbutzim. And the attack was experienced with their children. And of course, this attack distracted all of the traditional safety that they had experienced before that very challenging day. So we are talking about the personal experience in the context of the family from very specific communities in that region. So in this research, the motherhood becomes a central arena of trauma on the one hand and growth on the other hand. Because on the one hand, mothers were survivors, but they had also to be emotional anchors in front of their children. They had also to be protectors in physically and actively shielding their vulnerable lives of their children and themselves. And as mothers, they had also to interpret this threatening reality and try to translate this reality that they had to confront with. So the research was grounded on the post-traumatic growth theory of Tedeschi and Calhoun, a very known theoretical model, which is consisted of 5 integrals: the changes in self-perception, the changes in interpersonal relationships, the renewed appreciation to life, the emergence of new possibilities, and the changes in spiritual existential changes, which is can refer to religiosity, but also to other spiritual aspects. So according to this theoretical model, actually, after people experience potentially traumatic events, they can also experience sometimes afterwards some aspects of growth regarding these 5 topics. So the standard view regarding this theoretical model refers to the post-traumatic growth as is experienced by people as individuals. But in our research, we refer to the PTG, to the post-traumatic growth, in the context of motherhood. Because these mothers went through these potentially traumatic events with their children. So the main aim of the study was to explore how mothers who experienced the 7th of October with their children described trauma, coping, maternal identity, and post-traumatic growth. This was a qualitative research and was actually a theory-driven deductive thematic design. So actually the content analysis was guided by the PTG theory. The participants were 20 mothers from the Gaza envelope from kibbutzim. These are examples that are like Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Re'im, Kisufim, Nir Oz. These are the examples of the kibbutzim, these communities that the mothers belong to. The mothers were at ages between 30 to 51. The ages of the children were between 1 year to 21 years. And they all experienced the attack while actively being with their children in the shelters during that very, very challenging day, the 7th of October. So, and now we are referring to our main results. First, we see here dual consciousness, which is referring to, on the one hand, the internal experience of coping with terror, and on the other hand, the external regulation that they had to activate because they are mothers who are responsible for their children. And the other aspect is the access, which was an interwoven access, which referred on the one hand to the security completely collapsed, but on the other hand, the new security that was rebuilt. And this was something that represented the duality of the collapsed security on the one hand and the rebuilt security on the other hand. So now we will go through the 5 themes which are based on the 5 aspects of the PTG, of the post-traumatic growth. The first one is referring to the changes in self-perception. So here we see this duality. On the one hand, mothers refer to their maternal guilt feelings, and their maternal sense of helplessness, the self violently shaken by extreme fear. Okay, but on the other hand, there was a reconstruction of security and the discovery of an unexpected strength that they didn't know that exists in themselves, and profound emotional endurance under impossible conditions. Example of a quote referring to that: the fact that we're still here, alive and functioning, shows how incredibly resilient we are. I had to keep going for them, okay, for their children. The second theme was the interpersonal relationships. Again, this duality. On the one hand, the collapse of security, the sudden violent erasure of community and family safety. These were things that built the collapse of the parameter of personal relationships. And on the other hand, referring to the reconstruction of security, there was a dimension that was referring to the sheer danger of forging intense emotional intimacy. Family and community solidarity reproposed as a core coping resource. That means they revealed through that extreme experience that they can count and they can trust their family and their community. It's sad to say, but the time spent in the shelter brought us closer. Now we understand each other even without words. And regarding the third theme, appreciation to life. So again, the duality on the one hand, there was a loss of geographical safety because the whole area was threatened. And former achievements and material concerns rendered completely meaningless. If before they were interested in what clothes they should buy to themselves or their children, this was completely uninteresting now. But regarding the reconstruction of the security, meaning contracted intensely into immediate family life, basic physical safety, and maternal presence became the ultimate core value. Suddenly, the real appreciation to life was completely different. And it was so important to feel safe regarding themselves, their children, and the whole family. So again, an example of a quote: I used to be so focused on my business, but now all I want is to wake up and know my children are safe. That's all what matters. And we are going to the fourth theme, new possibilities. So the collapse of security, the future is rendered fundamentally uncertain and terrifying. They didn't know how to say what is going on with the future. They were really confused on the one hand. But on the other hand, there was also a reconstruction of security. And they raised the possibility of relocation and displacement as means of reclaiming maternal agency and physical control. For example, after what we went through, I don't think I can ever feel safe here again. And that is what, on the one hand, represents the collapse of security, but on the other hand, also the reconstruction of security because of planning, displacement, or relocation. And the fifth theme, existential reorganization. So on the one hand, regarding the collapse of security, profound spiritual rupture, anger, and deep existential doubt regarding existence or faith. Some of them refer to their religious faith and told us that they don't believe anymore in what they believed before. But on the other hand, there was the reconstruction of security, and they referred to new, brutally honest maternal identity, which is to be protective despite the collapse of external meaning. So here is a big question which refers to the collapse. Where was God that day? That's a big question, a big, big question. And the last theme, the maternal role, is actually an additional theme that emerged uniquely throughout the interviews and is really special and unique to our maternal context. So on the one hand, the pre-trauma ideal of total maternal protection, this was completely collapsed under the reality of the attack. But on the other hand, the reconstruction of the security, caregiving fueled reciprocal resilience. Mothers actively drew courage from witnessing their children's bravery in the dark. And actually, they felt that their maternal role got stronger because of their children's bravery during the attack. Quote, even when I was terrified, I knew I had to be strong for them. If I lost control, they would too. And they got their strength because of their children's bravery. So, what can we learn from that study? First of all, the reconstructed sense of security is fragile. Growth did not erase the fear or the pain. It emerged strictly through the capacity to provide care while terrified. And this is the duality that we have found during our interviews. Regarding interventions, I suggest first to support mothers and children also together and to look at them as a relational unit. Specifically, it is important to address immense maternal guilt and invisible emotional labor, and that is for mothers separately. When we are talking from a more systemic aspect, so it is very important to strengthen systemic family and community resilience. These communities are very important for the maternal resilience. And this is important for us to understand that it is important to move beyond the individual therapy towards a more systemic aspect. And explicitly recognize growth mechanisms without ever romanticizing the initiating trauma. This is very, very important. So, of course, the research has also some limitations. First of all, the findings are based on in-depth, semi-structured interviews, but we had 20 mothers, which are very localized in a very unique geographical and cultural context of the Gaza envelope kibbutzim. That is, of course, one very central limitation. Secondly, I want to refer to the temporal proximity. The research captures acute early stage coping and initial meaning making shortly after the October 7th attacks. And so it doesn't account for long-term psychological evolution. And that is very important to remember and to conduct some more research regarding those mothers and to see in a longitudinal research how this maternal post-traumatic growth is developing during time. And finally, these findings rely entirely on subjective, self-reporting, and deductive thematic analysis, inherently limiting broad statistical generability. So, our suggestion for future research, first of all, of course, longitudinal tracking. We have to conduct follow-up studies to track the fragility versus the permanence of this relational security. Secondly, regarding the intergenerational transmission, we have to investigate how this specific maternal PTG impacts the long-term psychological development and resilience of the children who are involved regarding those mothers. And regarding the comparative trauma typologies, we have to apply this relational PTG framework to other forms of severe, localized, and sustained community traumas globally. So, in sum, growth emerges through the act of caregiving, and not a part of it. And actually, what we have found in this research, that the PTG is not only an individual, subjective, perceived process, but it's also a part of caregiving in a relational manner. So if you are interested in broadening the view of those findings, you are invited to read this research. It was just recently published in the Journal of Israel Affairs, And of course, we will be very happy if you would also quote it. Thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure for me to introduce you to those very interesting findings.